Welcome back to the EGF Power Series 2022. We just saw map 1 of Butler Club up against Siena Saints, where Butler Club, with their ridiculous aggression, managed to get themselves the victory. And now we are moving on to map 2. This is going to be Icebox. Let me just take a look and really quick. Yeah, so this is going to be Siena's pick now, Janiro. So when we go on to Icebox, how do you think that aggression is going to manifest in terms of the way Butler just kept pressing W all game long?
In terms of Icebox, it's a bit larger than Bind for the other team to rotate. And if you manage to get onto a site, it's pretty much, if you're planting for the right position, it should be very easy for you to hold those both plant positions and just make sure that they're unable to get the diffuse out. But I do want to mention, in terms of Icebox, the agents that I'm really expecting to see are for sure Sage, Viper, and Jet. These are the core three that I'm expecting to see. Even Sova, to be completely honest, there's a couple of nooks and crannies coming through, and he's just such a good agent and collecting that information. Sage, just to give you more space onto site, specifically onto B side, because it's so difficult to get the plant off on B through a lot of open space. Whereas the Viper is so incredibly broken, if I do say so myself, at holding that B side solo. Can put down the Viper wall, can make sure that there's a snake bite on the floor, so it's like really impossible to plant, and it just delays the attackers for such a long period of time that they have to go for another site. Or if they try to go and stay on the site, it just buys so much time for your team to be able to rotate. So really happy with these Viper and Sage picks coming through, as well as the Jet, something that we pretty much expected to see from both teams here. I am seeing, however, that Butler is hovering a Neon. So are they going to be running a triple duelist?
No way. I would love to see Neon. I think Neon's got a lot of options, but no, it is the Breach. And something I kind of want to add to your core composition on Icebox, I kind of want to add Chamber to that. We've been seeing it so much more, and I'm an evangelist of this, okay? Welcome to the Church of Icebox, of Chamber on Icebox. I am your priest, and I'm going to talk to you about why it's good right now while we have a moment, because Viper, you nailed it with Viper. She is broken on this map. She can cover so much. You don't need another controller besides Viper on Icebox in order to cover everything you need because of the options with the walls. That means you can get some extra firepower by bringing in the Chamber instead of maybe that other controller, instead of something like a Killjoy. Chamber can do the same thing, but also can bring out that Tour de Force, can bring out that Headhunter, right? So I think that Chamber really is starting to be explored, especially we've seen lots of it in North America, but also other regions. And I think that Chamber is getting close to being one of those core agents on Icebox. His kit just works so well with this map, and especially in tandem with the Viper, like you mentioned.
Really going to be exciting to see how these teams are able to pull these agents off, and whether they're going to have those utility in sync. It's something that I genuinely didn't see much of last game from both teams. Their util, it was used correctly and it was used effectively, but I felt like there was so much more util in the bank that they could have utilize and capitalize off of. I think one of the things that both teams did really well last map was the raise nades, and as we're seeing, they're already rushing onto that site and the plant is down.
Welcome to Icebox once again. This is the round. You're going to be seeing it a lot. You and I have talked about Icebox before. It's definitely, you see the same round a lot of the time, but within that round is where you see the variation. Here's Smiley already getting aggressive through the Viper wall. Fours as well with Icy. The trades coming back and forth. They're just running at each other with the pistols. Pango's trying to get the frags. Pango switching over to the Chamber, by the way, from the raise before. Pango gets one. The defuse is starting to come in. Odin finally finds the headshot, and it's so close again, but Butler will take round 1 on defense, and I gotta shout out Smiley pushing forward right through that Viper wall, past Yellow, getting the initial headshot, opening up that side. Now everybody's got to be switching focus. Lovely work there from the entry fragger, from the initiator of Butler University.
But how close was that? 26 HP left on Odin. 26. That was insane. I genuinely thought that was going to be a W in the bag for Siena. It looked very much unwinnable, then it looked winnable again, and then it just like wasn't winnable. So definitely interesting round to see there. 8 HP left here. Headhunter has been popped as well as the Rendezvous, but it's not enough. Force once again playing so incredibly aggressive. He knows he has the better firepower, has a Spectre. Boomout comes out, Satchel coming out, Spectre coming out, gets one, Odin gets another, Smiley available as well. Loki with that shorty picks off Force is gonna take that Spectre right out of his hands. He's gonna try and pick off Icy, but it doesn't matter because Icy is already available. He's online, his monitor is switched off, and he is out for some blood.
There we go. And yeah, you know, a nice attempt there by the Jet, but that Spectre that you picked up, I'm sorry to say, it's out of bullets. Way too early. There was a chance for some heroics there, but yeah, that Spectre running out and having to reload in the middle of that definitely was the clincher there. So Butler go up 2-0. We're going to be finally on to the gun round here. Well, the bonus round, I should say, of Butler. Holding on to things like the Marshals and the Spectres. Meanwhile, the full Vandal arsenal going over on the side of Siena. And what can they find with it is the question. You do see Smiley over here on the op, so that's, on the op. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out for there, is that sort of odd angle. You don't often see the op play there, and you don't often see the breach play with the op. But already the first pick has come over. First, he's getting some good info, but takes a little damage for his troubles. Force to clear up. Nikki to find 2. Smiley to reveal the op and find the frag onto Pango. 3 versus 2 on the defense for Butler. And Siena to try to continue to move forward into A. There's Icy to find Nikki, and it's Gray remaining.
Gray with the mountain in front of him that he has to cross. Fault line being put out, doesn't get the knock up on Gray, but Smiley holding those really non-traditional angles with the operator. Barrier Orb is going to give it a little bit of cover, but it doesn't matter because Odin has already managed to pick up a Vandal and they took Gray out right away. In terms of playstyle coming through from Siena, they wanted to get onto that A site initially, but as we're seeing from Butler, they are so aggressive. And I guess the best offense is defense because they just push right out straight into their faces. And when you have a Spectre on such close range and you're just running and gunning, that is so much more valuable than the Vandal. If we're being completely honest, can't really run and gun with the Vandal, whereas a Spectre, it does work out in their favor. They get those initial 2 picks, and when Siena's already down on numbers, their mental seems to be like crumbling. They're not really very decisive in terms of what other round they should go to, and we're seeing something similar coming through again. They lose numbers and they just like hold their space, and it allows Butler to push out so aggressively, getting 1, getting 2, getting 3. Loki with the Spectre trying to make it work as he's holding angles for his teams, and as he gets his second, it's now a 1v3. Low HP on the race, so maybe he can make it work. A breach running in, giving him that operator at 3k for Loki. A 1v2, doesn't have to spike. They're holding his angles, and a patience coming through from Butler University. They don't want to give him the peek, and he gets the 426 HP. He's so incredibly low. It's gonna be a matter of, does he want to get the spike and go to A? Does he want to push out? And as slowly Odin is creeping up behind him, Loki not aware of where Odin is. He doesn't know if he's on the A side or on the B side, although I would assume that he would be on B, but Odin taking him out right away. And this is perfect in terms of what we've been seeing coming through from Butler. Aggressive in the initial beginning of the round, and then when they need to be defensive and just be patient, that's perfect as well. They can play that style too.
Yeah, they gave Loki maybe a little bit too much of a chance there, I have to say. If I were to, you know, nitpick on that round, you probably want to play together in the 1 versus 2 at the end there, and Ray's giving up that pick in that situation was pretty rough, but in the end, still Loki not able to clear them all out. The 4K on the round, if I'm not mistaken, and nice attempt, but still, it is going to be Butler with a 4-0 start, still not dropping around, and this one is actually Siena's map pick. Yeah, so Icebox definitely going even better for Butler so far compared to Bind. We have the 4 versus 4 to start off as aggression continues to come through. Butler, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Continuing to push up. But in this case, Something might need to be fixed here because it's 2 versus 2. Nope, Icy will not be missing that headshot. A 1 versus 2 once again. This time it's Pango to try with the clutch and looks for the headshot. Icy is the better chamber in that scenario. 2 players remaining, 5-0 for Butler.
Last map specifically from Butler, so it was Butler's map. They were able to get that pick and they were able to get the win as well. But what we saw was both teams were very equally matched. It was basically you give a round, I take a round, you give a round, I take a round. It was a bit of a trade coming through from these teams. But this game, Butler has absolutely blown it wide open. They definitely warmed up after last game and they're literally not pressing on those brakes. They don't want to stop, and it's already 5-0 for Siena on their map, and I genuinely cannot believe how that must be affecting them mentally. At this point, they've tried a couple of things and it just doesn't seem to be working. They're now going to try the strategy of pressing W as well, but it doesn't matter because Icy takes Loki out right away.
You know, it's just the Icy show right now. Look at this. Look at these headshots. Trying to find more spots. One. There we go. Icy is just clean with it right now. And it's OSU remaining. There's going to be Odin taking them down. And yeah, it's a 1 versus 2. And actually, Pango's got a good position here and has full HP compared to the low HP of the 2 opponents. The one thing that they don't have is the spike, which is being completely locked down by the 2 remaining defenders for Butler University. So you got to go for this. 5-0. You need to put some rounds on the board here for Siena, and Pango's going to try to do just that, creeping their way slowly towards the B site. This is a good angle to shoot from. You got yellow to play around. You still have the headhunter if needed. Pango. Pango with 1 and 2! Pango finds the ace in the end! And that is absurd from the chamber. We talked about how good chamber was on Icebox, but that was all Pango right there. Finding the angle through the site, finding the 2 players at the end, and Siena put 1 on the board in spectacular fashion.
One way of putting a first round on the board coming through from Siena, beautiful ace from Pango.
That's one way to do it.
That's definitely one way to do it. And they had a double peek coming through on Pango. They were ready for it, it seems, but it didn't work out initially. Pango just warmed up a bit more, if I do say so myself. Is gonna be able to pop this with force, but as I say that, KO coming through with a null command, disabling it right away. Firstly taking out KO and Nikki taking off first team, making sure that trade is coming through. Gotta be a case of reviving. And Sage is going to be able to do so. Doesn't need to actually invest a resurrection for it. And Osir is back online.
Spike down mid.
Back online and into the 4 versus 4 here. That's the power of the KO, which we haven't discussed much. There's been so much action already. But Osir now pushing forward. Odin not prepared for that at all and not getting the sound cue soon enough. So now Pango once again finds themselves in a clutch situation. 1 versus 3 here. All players lined up. Can Pango do it again? Finds the first. Pango goes for the second. Pango with a third! A clutch! 2 in a row! Magnificent from Pango! And Siena put 2 on the board off the back of some star power.
Ayo! Can someone check this guy's computer? The clutch genetic coming through. He was fully concussed and he was still able to get the 3K clutching up the round for Siena. That was insane.
Oh my goodness, that is just ridiculous. Pango was not showing off much in bind. There was not much on the scoreboard. Pango was in play on that raise, kind of in the middle, but in this, he's just found another gear, realizing I've got to take this game into my hands right now, and that's exactly what Pango is doing so far. Now you can see Firsty trying to match that individual power. Pango gets taken out early, has to be said. That's an important find. 4 versus 2 situation now as the defensive attack continues to push forward. The offensive defense, I should say. Loki hiding in spawn. Loki does find a kill, but has a very difficult situation. You gotta hit your shots, though. Gotta hit your shots. There's Firsty, not gonna miss for too much longer. And Butler stop the 2-round win streak and maybe take a little bit of wind out of Pango's sails.
Able to pick up that operator, so it's gonna look a bit better on their economy. Not all members are able to buy from the side of Siena, so it's looking a little rough, but they're gonna be able to make it work. In terms of tactic, it feels like Siena is gonna be able to adapt a little bit. They're doing a bit better in terms of reacting to what Butler is throwing at them, but it's still not enough. Util being invested from KO was absolutely huge in terms of, taking Jet out and not allowing Jet to get those picks and going for a second. But as I say that, Feisty with that operator takes out Pango, and as you mentioned earlier, Pango has been so instrumental to making plays work and getting those clutch scenarios out, getting single-handedly those two rounds on the board, and it's looking like once again it's a bit difficult from the side of Siena. Barrier Orb is gonna go up as Gray tries to run up into Tube with that spike, but Flawless coming through, and 7-2. Butler's so close to double digits.
Yeah, and we gotta hope that wasn't just a flash in the pan from Pango, who sits at 14 kills, the highest in the server, but it just has been shut down, and it's honestly a really nice strategy, and it's not like they're changing it up much, but Butler, in particular Firsty, has been pushing forward and flexing their aim on Pango. You saw in that round, dry peeking the Tour de Force with the op and getting that kill. That is what you want to do. That's the mental game right there, is going for plays like this, and Firsty is not stopping anytime soon, continuing to go for this position because they just haven't found a really reliable way to unseat him just yet. Finds one. I think Firsty was probably spotted there. Yeah, there's the peek. So Firsty does finally get dissuaded from peeking that again, but it's Force over on the other side. They're just pincering in. Pango does find one, but it's still a 4 versus 4, and the weaponry is still in favor of Butler. Loki's got an important position here, though, but that's all that Loki has. And now no longer even his life. Osiu gets traded out. 3 players remaining, 8-2 for Butler.
And Butler just further getting that lead and running away with it. They want all the wins that they can get, specifically on the initial side. They were playing the defender side, and it's looking like they're going to be able to get away with it. We still got 2 rounds, though, for Siena to close in the gap. We'll see if they might be better on defending in terms of attacking, but Butler so far just incredible at putting down so much pressure and playing the game perfectly. They're not allowing Siena any room to breathe, and they're forcing them to play the game that they want them to play. They're not giving Siena any opportunity to come up with their own plans, and as they're looking to push, Pango getting up Icy. That's already 1 player down. Odin, the one-man hold, trying to buy his team as much time as possible. 20 HP, but look at Farsty, how far behind enemy lines he is once again. And you'd assume that Siena would learn from the flanks that came time and time again, but it doesn't matter. Pango being rezzed, brought back from the dead. Nikki taking off Farsty, making this a more even battlefield, but Odin takes out Osiu. It's a 2v3. Force with that operator is fearless, and that's another win in the bag for Butler.
Yeah, and Siena just looked out of sorts in that round, being collapsed on from multiple angles all at the same time, not reacting quite fast enough to really any of them. And so, yeah, it really looked rough for Siena in that situation there. With Force being able to do something like that, satcheling in for an op peak, there's a reason you don't see that very often, is because the op takes a long time to pull out. Normally you'd get killed, but there was just too much chaos going on for Siena's defense. Everybody huddled behind yellow box there. And they get themselves into a 9-2 score line. This isn't a far cry from what we saw before over on Bind there, where Siena were going blow for blow. This time, Butler is just beating them into submission.
And again, such aggressive plays. A couple of shots don't land, but Force with that operator is insane. Smiley also so far out. Pango holding that angle with the Bulldog. Doesn't want to give them the picks. Loki also just playing for spawn, but it's such a sad situation when you are forced to play from your spawn. Last player standing at this point, it looks like Butlers are toying with their food.
But the food bites back in this case, with Siena finding a third, finally breaking that win streak and finally getting themselves back onto the board. And it didn't have to be Pango pulling out a ridiculous clutch this time. So that's going to be 9-3. Do you believe in miracles, folks? Because that is what Siena seems to need here in order to find a way back into this map. Of course, defensive side of Icebox, in particular at the collegiate level, tends to be favored, but not this much usually, Gennaro.
Not this much, but initially we assumed they'd be closely matched. It's looking like Butler has just had a heck of a game on the defender side. it's going to be interesting to see whether this is actually going to translate onto their attacking side. But the fact that they've been pressing W and just running around is absolutely incredible. Also, you're going to throw that knife out initially trying to get a little bit of information, but it's not enough. Barrier Orb has been put down in Tube and Force on Loki already on the trade. He's just playing Minecraft. He's playing Minecraft.
Smiley's farming resources right now.
Yep.
He goes forward, and Icy's going to be peeking behind, so that distraction did end up working. Smiley gets a kill off of that. What am I seeing right now?
I wish I had the words to describe what I was saying. I think Aussie has Minecraft running on the second screen probably of his computer, and he was like, oh, actually, I'm tabbed into the wrong game. But that was such a beautiful distraction. Not that it only distract us casters, but it also distracted the Siena team, and they were just like, what? Because you wouldn't expect that. If you think that one person is just randomly knifing down that barrier orb, you'd think, okay, they're all like stuck in Tube, they're trying to get through. You're not going to expect them to run up behind you from kitchen. But I guess they did, and it worked out.
So I've never seen that in my entire life. I've never seen somebody knife their way all the way through all 3 segments of the Sage Barrier Orb. That's just gorgeous. I can't get enough of that. Okay, I'm verbally stun-locked by that play, but we have to keep casting Janiro, and that's what we're going to do as Butler wants to fight back and not let Siena back into this game here, as Siena holding on the defense once again. No way, Smiley's doing it again, and Osiu tries to find some sort of punishment here, gets Firsty there on the peak, and Pango as well is having some success here, pushing in. That planter is not covered at all. Here's Pango with another headshot, but Odin randomly with Sheriff headshots, and it's Force to get more kills. Where's Smiley? Where are you at? Smiley's already dead.
Smiley's already dead, and
no, he's there.
Smiley's
Smiley's there. It's only Gray remaining.
Gray wants to take out as many players as he can, but Force with that Spectre, double digits, 10-4, and Butler at this point is looking like they're having a good time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This definitely is a little bit of shenanigans going on from them, but I enjoy it. They realize they might have their opponents a little outmatched, and so it's time to mess around with their heads a little bit. Still, Pango standing strong, and you can see, you know, that they can get punished for this. It was only off the back of some gorgeous shots by Odin that they did manage to get an advantageous situation in that round. So 10-4, but they're not out of the woods yet. Butler can't screw around too much.
And that's exactly what the case. They can't really run around and try and play this the way they want to. They have to submit to Butler's game and just be better at it. But Nikki only holding it with the classic just makes it that much more difficult. And Feisty pressing that W key doesn't know how to press shift. He is absolutely unleashed. Gets Osiu in the back of the side. And Pangar, although he gets 1, it's not enough as Icy makes it a 2K for himself. And Gray with that classic has to try and defend it once again. But look at this rotation coming through from Butler. They absolutely cleaned. They rinsed out B site, and they're now gonna go for A. And Icy just gonna wait for Gray to push into him. He did manage to get 1 rifle off of the ground, and gonna try and make it work for him, but it doesn't matter because Icy finds his forehead, clicks on it, and 11-4 for Butler.
Yeah, it's now Pango versus the world in a lot of cases here. Loki has slowed down a little bit, and Osiu not coming up with those clutch plays that we were seeing on Bind, and so Butler definitely fighting against a squad that feels a little incomplete at this point. Siena may have run out of steam. So they, Butler will try to continue, and they will try to kind of close this one out, move on to the semifinals, which will be tomorrow over here on EGF3, I believe, or they'll be on one of the EGF channels. So why don't you make sure you follow them all? But in any case, Firsty gets a first pick going on, playing that entry situation, and finding Gray does end up with the headshot there, remaining on 8 HP, and Icy continuing on. Low-keys here on the off angle, finding 1, finding 2, and Pango as well to trade back. So we find ourselves in a 1 versus 2, but it's Force with the Odin to take out Low-key, the fellow Norse god, of course, just spelled a little bit of a different way, but Loki is the one who goes down in that situation to the Odin.
We're seeing A raise with the Odin on top of Tube, spamming at the other team. I
Yep.
feel like this is like the pinnacle of Valorant, the
Yeah.
pinnacle of a tactical shooter,
This
precise
is real
gunplay.
NA. Welcome to NA,
Yeah.
everybody.
I
Welcome to
love
NA
it.
Nero. This is your
Thank you. I want to stay here.
I know. Yeah, this is the stuff right here. This is the stuff we like to eat for a snack. Bursty going up top, fighting Pango, and actually that's a very important find because Pango was the lifeline in a lot of Siena's rounds so far, as we've already seen. Here's Bursty continuing to cause problems. 5 versus 3, and this particular map may end with a whimper instead of with a bang, unless Loki has anything to say about it.
Great, trying his best as well as Loki to give his team a lifeline, but it doesn't matter because the satchels, the Odin coming in from Frogs is just built diff to say the least, and Butlers take the win, going 13-4 on Icebox, which happened to be Siena's pick.
Butler takes their opponent's map pick in far more decisive fashion than they took the first map, their own map pick. So I like that Siena put up a serious fight on Bind. We got a great map out of that one, but in the end, it turns out that Butler was the far superior team on Icebox in terms of their fragging, in terms of their aggression, which they keep pushing forward. What I'm curious to see, Janiro, is what can we see in the future of this Butler squad in terms of that aggression? Who's going to be able to punish that? Who's going to be able to find the chink in their armor and find the way that they can get some advantage out of what Butler are leaving open here?
Yeah, and I guess we're gonna have to watch all the games for you guys to find out, but I do want to point out that in terms of Butler's game strategy, being able to only play the game in one-sided in terms of just pressing the W key and pushing on, yes, it works. It works against Siena specifically. They weren't very good at holding those opponents back and buying as much time needed for their team, for the rest of the team to rotate. But once you walk into a team that is able to do that, and there will obviously be one of those teams that are going to be able to do that, then you're going to have a little bit of a struggle, because then Butler is going to have to adapt their playstyle, and as we saw in the beginning of the first map on Bind, they weren't that good at playing it a little slow and a bit more relaxed. So interesting to see how this team is going to go and do in the future, but for that, we are going to be throwing it to a break, and we'll be right back with you guys with an interview.
Welcome back to the EGF Power Series, where we have just seen Butler take a pretty commanding 2-0 victory over Siena Saints, and we are now joined by Firsty, one of the most aggressive of an already very, very W key focused team. So Firsty, welcome here. Thanks for joining us. How are you feeling after that victory?
Oh yeah, we're feeling pretty good after that one. It was, I don't want to say easy, but you know, it wasn't very close.
Sure.
We were kind of just having fun.
Awesome. Well, we really enjoyed watching you guys play. Definitely Bind was a lot closer, and we saw you go back and forth quite a bit. What happened on Icebox that managed to get you guys into a way more, confident situation? How come you took Icebox so much easier than Bind?
I think Icebox was a lot easier for us because it suits our aggression a lot more. Our IGL, Jacob Icy Lang, has put lots of hours of VOD review into Icebox specifically, so we had a lot of strats coming into that one.
And the strats seem to have paid off. You guys ended at 13-4, which is pretty incredible. So congratulations to you guys there. I want to throw it back to Bind initially. One of the maps that, it seemed a lot more closer. It seems like you guys didn't really find your footing starting it out. It was like give round, take round. Then eventually you guys were able to pull it back towards the end. What exactly happened in terms of not being able to play very consistently in the beginning of Bind?
Well, Bind, we struggle a little bit on attack on Bind specifically because we have fours on Raze. He's pretty uncomfortable on that agent. Like we're just trialing it out. So I was on the Jet. I kind of had to solo entry this kid. He was baiting a little bit. So and then Icy Lang, he hasn't done as much VOD review. So our strats were pretty all over the place. But once we got to the defense, we kind of just posted up and took it away.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, that kind of leads into what I wanted to ask about as well, which is just about Butler Club in general. How long has this five-person squad been together?
I'm pretty sure this is our second match played with this five squad. But me, Fours, and then Icy and Smiley, we've all played together quite a bit. But Odin is a new recent addition.
Awesome. Well, yeah, just a quick follow-up on that, because I know when I looked at the Butler Club page on the tournament page, there are a bunch of people on the roster. Are those people being switched in and out, or is this the 5-man squad that we should expect from Butler Club?
This is the ideal 5-man squad, but we have played with multiple different rosters.
In terms of the utility usage on both Bind and Icebox, we haven't really seen a lot of Viper pits coming through. We also haven't seen a lot of util in general being used. You guys did lock in some quite util heavy champs, but also you guys had really good entry fraggers in terms of the Raze and the Jet. Did absolutely incredible. Good job coming through. Do you think that in the future utility is something that you guys would like to focus on a bit more, or do you think there are other things lacking in terms of the performance that you think is more important?
Yeah, definitely. That is not our normal comp we usually run on Bind. We usually don't run two duelists. We usually run Raze only, and then we'll run Sky or Sova together. And we usually play it a little slower, but we thought we had the upper hand there, so we kind of just ran it a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, you guys definitely look like you're having fun out there, which we love to see. Before we let you go, I actually do have one more question, and that's about your history in the group stage, because we saw that you had a couple close matches against Blue Hens, who are, a team that now I believe hasn't got. Oh yeah, a team that has gotten through, but we're not sure if they're going to get through. How was that matchup? And would you, if given the opportunity to face Blue Hens again, how would you feel about that matchup?
Was it? Correct me. Was that the match we lost?
I think you lost in overtime 17-15, and then there was one that you won 13-8. So you played them twice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the second day for groups, we actually had 2 members from our roster missing. So I think if we match up with them again, they were pretty solid. But I think if we match up with them again, especially with this roster, I don't think it'll be as close.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to seeing more Butler Club in the future. Firsty, thank you so much for joining us, and congrats on the win.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Have a good one. Okay, well, that was Firsty, and yeah, you know, I love the confidence. I love the nonchalance. It's really cool to see these teams coming in and having a good time in this tournament, and also playing really well, Janiro. So, you know, we are done for this particular match, of course, and we will be moving on. I'm not sure if it's going to be on this stream or a different channel, but here we go. We actually do have the schedule up on your screen there, so if you want to take a look over at that, we had Georgetown versus DePaul, which was happening already kind of concurrent to this. Wichita versus Quinnipiac. I should have practiced that pronunciation, Janiro. Butler versus Siena, which we just saw, of course, and we got Delaware versus Marist as well coming up at 6:30, so or thereabouts. So that's what to look forward to. Make sure you are staying tuned to all the official EGF Twitch channels so that you make sure you don't miss any of the action coming up. Janiro, thank you so much for joining me. Any final thoughts on this match?
Thank you for having me. I thought it was a really nice match to watch in terms of both teams being very close in the first map, and then the second game, obviously not that close, but still, I think being able to do some VOD reviews would be really nice for both teams. They can look at their strengths and weaknesses, specifically because the first map was much closer. So as I mentioned, they didn't have a lot of strats coming through in Bind, and I think this might be something that other teams will look to take advantage of in the future. So a couple of VOD reviews definitely will help out. And in terms of Icebox, I think both teams there's always an opportunity to learn something for whatever VOD review you do. So really looking forward to what these teams are going to be able to pull out in the future.
Yeah, you know, I'm glad that Firsty was mentioning Icy's VOD reviewing. I'm not sure how tongue-in-cheek that was when he was talking about it, but if real VOD review is going on with this squad, you know, I mean, you can see that they play together really well and that they've got some serious prep done for certain situations in any case. So glad to hear that. Glad to have Firsty on, and congrats once again to Butler. Siena Saints definitely put up a good fight, especially on Bind, and, you know, you gotta shout out Pango for that absurd pair of rounds where he just destroyed everybody. But Siena Saints will be eliminated, and we will move on. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will be back very soon with more Valorant in the EGF series. We'll see you then. Have a good night.